Have you had difficulty getting your slice serve to curve and really bend like the pros do? Well, stay tuned. I'm going to show you my secrets to the slice serve coming right up. Okay, let's dive into the slice serve solutions that I promised. So the first aspect, if you're having trouble getting your slice to really slice, it's got to be the grip. So it's my number one go-to fix for players who are struggling to get the curve or bend on their slice. And the grip, I would recommend going very far over to the extreme. Almost, if you have a one-handed backhand, it would be close to an Eastern one-handed backhand grip. But basically, I'll show you guys in slow-mo or in close-up, but you want the index knuckle really close or on top of the first panel, the top bevel of the racket, and you want your heel pad, the pad of your palm also near the top bevel, and that will give you a very, very good grip for cutting across the side of the ball, cutting across the edge of the ball, creating friction and side spin rotation on the ball. And what I found is that grip is super critical. It basically unlocks the serve for all the students that I work with, whether they're juniors or adults. And I've had a lot of success teaching a world-class slice serve to countless junior champions, for example. And if you utilize that grip with the knuckle of the index finger and the palm or heel pad, also near the top of the handle, you're going to get so much more spin. But there's a little trick to it, because you want to also let your wrist and your forearm, so from your elbow joint and your wrist joint, you want those two joints to be relaxed when you're using that new grip. And that'll be the next secret that I tell you coming right up. Okay, so we were talking about how this grip, this more extreme grip, and almost in an Eastern one-handed backhand grip, is super critical to unlocking the slice serve. If you've never been able to really get your slice to bend, the grip is definitely a prerequisite for getting a big-time bending slice. But what comes along with that is you have to let the wrist move, and you have to let the elbow move, and also your shoulder has to be whippy. This whole shoulder, elbow, wrist connection here has to be like a whip. There has to be an elasticity through here. And what I work on with my students is letting this part of the movement, this is called ulnar deviation. So the pinky side is called the ulnar side. That's where the ulnar bone is. And I teach my students to let that move. On high-speed video, it's hard to tell how much the wrist is moving on a slice serve. It's easier to study in 3D motion capture, but essentially, I believe there is some subtle wrist movement there, and it's very important for slice. It's important to let this ulnar deviation happen and to stay whippy in this movement, like as you can see here or here. It's going to happen up top here. So you're going to come up to the ball. You have your new grip, nice slice grip that's going to promote the maximum spin possible. And you're going to swing up to the ball on the edge here, and you're going to let this accelerate. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you're going to let this accelerate. It's probably not going to move that much, but you actually work on it that way. Sometimes you do things when you're learning technique that are not always biomechanically accurate, and I love biomechanics. I'm going back to school to get a PhD in biomechanics, so I have nothing against biomechanics, but sometimes when you're teaching stuff, you exaggerate things and you do certain movements to get a feeling for something kinesthetically or proprioceptively, so that when you do it for real, it hits the checkpoint that you want, the technical checkpoint that you want. So in this case, I would recommend thinking about really letting that wrist deviate on the ulnar side, and to get this feeling of whipping through here, kind of almost like a little bit like throwing a hammer. And you also see the movement in my elbow. This is actually coming from the shoulder, so you're getting a good whip in the internal rotation of the shoulder. So that's this movement. The shoulder's rotating internally, and you combine that with keeping your hand, or your, in this case, your racket, on edge, and you're going to ulnar deviate and accelerate through there. And that movement, it's been like magic for my students. Can't always explain that, why, but I think because people get too tight when they're hitting a slice. I see people making the correct movement, and they're very locked through here. This is too stiff. The wrist is too stiff, the elbow's a little tight, and they can't get good spin like this. It's hard to get spin when everything's locked like that. But when you accelerate and you let the wrist move, you let the racket head come from down below and accelerate up to the ball, and this is whippy, you can get a nice slice, really good spin. You know, when I played college, I played #1 for Cornell, and this is one of my favorite serves in college. And you have to let that wrist move. That was a good one. So my third pro slice tip is the location of the ball in relationship to your body. And this is, I think, so critical, and most players struggle with where the toss should be in relation to the body for a slice. I'll show you from the back view, and I'll show you from another view so you can see what I mean, because it's a 3D situation here. It's not just, you know, the ball needs to be a little bit this way, but there's more than one, or there's multi-dimensions here. The ball has to be in front just the right amount, and the ball has to be to the right just the right amount. So in terms of the right, you want to have the ball to the right of your head. So if my head is here, I want to be shifted to the right with the ball. Or if I go to swing, and my right shoulder's here, I want to be making impact somewhere just over my right shoulder or to the right of my shoulder, and definitely to the right of my head. So that would be pretty good. I'm going to go up to serve, and I don't want the ball here. This is a lot harder to slice here. Advanced players can slice here. I can toss to my left and slice, but for most people, when you're learning, it's so much easier to be at like 1 o'clock with the toss. You could even go to 1:30. You know, you could even toss it out here, just to get some practice in. You can, I don't know if you saw that one, that ball had a massive curve to it. You can do kind of a trick serve. Sometimes I call it a trick slice, where you toss even farther to the right. You know, that's way farther to the right than I would normally toss it, but that's a great way to just get the feeling of cutting the side edge of the ball. So between 12 and 1, closer to 1, and that's going to be the toss for your flat serve too. So you'll have 2 tosses there, exactly the same. You'll have picture perfect disguise. When you want to hit a slice or a flat, you'll keep the toss in the same spot, just to the right of your head, right around that range. That's going to give you a good slice. Yep, just to the right of your body. So continuing our talk about the toss, is we talked about getting the ball to the right, but then there's this other plane that we're working in, this other dimension where the toss needs to be the correct amount in front. And that can be different for different people depending on your height and how far you can reach. But in general, that if we're talking about a first serve slice where you want the ball to stay low and skid, which is the primary focus here, there's also a second serve slice where you toss the ball closer to you and you hit it with more topspin. We're not talking about that one. We're just talking about a first serve slice. You want that toss pretty far in front. So that's going to be way inside the baseline, probably 2-3 feet inside the baseline, depending on your height and how far you can reach, and if you're jumping or not jumping, but it's got to be inside the court, in front of your body. And so what happens is a lot of people will toss it here, and they'll get sort of stuck, or they'll get blocked here, and their slice won't have very much pace on it. You can still hit a slice from here, but it's not going to be ideal. You're going to get your max speed if you toss it in here. Yeah, like that's a good toss. That's going to be a really good slice. That toss was way inside the court, and it's going to allow me to throw my racket up into the ball. You want to throw your racket kind of like we were saying, a hammer or an axe, you know. You want to throw the racket forward And you don't want to meet the ball where right above your body. That's going to create too much topspin and slow the ball down. You want to meet the ball with your racket way in front. So throwing the racket up in front and making the impact forward is critical. The impact should be well in front of your left shoulder. Many times you'll see club players or players who are learning the slice and struggling with the slice, they'll make the impact back here above their head. The impact will be here. Some players will impact the ball back here. I've seen club players, like adults, try to impact the ball back here. Some kids will do that too, or kids will impact the ball here, and that's going to be a very slow slice. Maximum speed on the slice is going to be with the toss in front of the body. So you have that relationship with the ball, and you have, as we were saying before, you want to keep the ball to your right, closer to 1 o'clock. So you have these multi-dimensions here, these two different planes that you're working with here, and you want to make sure that you have the ball in the correct location based on these planes, these axes. And if you can get both those planes right, you're going to hit your best slice. And you can load up your energy and accelerate across the edge of the ball. You're going to get a really good curve on that slice. What I find is when players don't have a good relationship with the toss, they can do everything right. They could try to experiment with their grip, which we were talking about. They can try to experiment with their whip, letting the wrist move more, getting more whippiness from the internal shoulder rotation, but they're just not going to get a good slice if the toss is not in a good relationship with their body. And that's like the hardest thing for people to see. So kids struggle with that all the time. I work on that with many young children, and I see that with many adults. Over time, they develop the wrong orientation between the body and the ball. And so they just can't hit a good slice until that is structurally fixed. So I spend a lot of time with players trying to get them to get that kinesthetic awareness about where their body is in relationship to the ball, and sometimes you have to rewire the brain to appreciate like where the ball needs to be in space in relationship to your body. And that's one of the hardest things to do without a coach. It really helps to have an expert coach helping guide you through that, because it's not the easiest thing to fix. Once you've gotten the habit of your body, some people slide their bodies forward and then the ball gets out of alignment with their body because of the way they're shifting their body the wrong way too. That can happen as well. Sometimes it's not just the toss, it's the way you move your body in relationship to the toss. So you've got to have this correct structural relationship between how you set up and where the ball is located to maximize your slice. And 9 times out of 10, I see players who they've lost that good relationship. The ball is not in the correct place in relationship to where their body, where they're loading, and then their impact point is off, and that just creates too flat a shot or too slow a slice, things like that. You see all sorts of issues with that. So if you can try to get that relationship right, toss to the right, toss forward, load your energy here, and don't get all scrambled with your body getting in the wrong place in relationship to the ball, or tossing the ball too close to your body and getting jammed, things like that. It's going to make a huge difference for your slice. But if you've been struggling with your slice and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, I got the grip, I'm trying to cut it, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's not coming out right, I guarantee you have a poor relationship between the ball and your body, and you may need to get some expert advice to get that fixed. Okay, so you've got some 3 tips to work on, and you want to go out and practice. Well, if you don't have a coach helping, you can certainly work on your slice on your own. Like I said, you may get stuck with some of that relationship between the ball and your body. You may need to get some pro advice, but if you're working on the slice and you got a bucket of balls, I would recommend, and I almost always start my students out here near the doubles alley. We start close to the alley, and one of the cool things you can do is when you toss, you can make sure the toss is in the alley, and that'll force your toss to the right of your body. So you make sure the toss, you do your motion, and the toss is forward and inside the alley. That wasn't a very good toss. My ball was not in the alley. And then if you get a toss in the alley, a little more to the right, you're going to get a much, much better slice. And you're going to get that, you have a chance at least to get that big curve. Serving from here helps you visually work on the slice out wide. And it often helps to unlock the shorter angle slice, which is really important, where you can get the ball to go into the side wall. So I highly recommend working on the serve. If you're practicing at home, get a bucket of balls and practice most of your slices from an extreme position here out near the doubles alley. You can even go farther out. But if you start right here where the singles sideline intersects with the baseline, you can work on, you get kind of a 2-for-1 bonus practice here. You get to work on, you can visualize that angle over there, and you can work on that sharp angle, which is really, really important for the slice. And you can also work on your toss here. Toss in the doubles alley, and then you can work on the slice there. Something like that. Another really useful way to practice is just getting up close, either near the service line or halfway back. And I also like to be near the single sideline to promote the angle. And you can just work on your motion here. If you notice, a lot of the slices that I hit today, I didn't really use my legs. I didn't use my full motion or my full explosion. I was just demonstrating the arm action and the slice you can generate without much use of the legs at all. And you can practice, that's a really good way to practice a slice. Just work on the toss location in relationship to your body. If you remember that most will have a poor relationship between the toss and their body, so by standing more stationary, that can oftentimes help to get a feeling of where the toss should be. You don't want the toss too close to your body, you want it out in front. And so I highly recommend doing some progressions here, starting up close, and then also serving without too much legs at first. You can just start, you don't even have to use a full motion. You can start up here in the power position. That's a good way to start learning the slice. You can start right here, just slice from there. You know, that's very common. You can get a really nice slice that way. That may be helpful for some of you guys. That's a good drill for learning. I mentioned you can toss out to the side and hit more of a sidearm slice to get the feeling of the slice, you know. And you can do all these things with progressions. If you're having trouble getting the whole thing going from way back near the baseline, it's always good to start up close. A lot of times with young juniors, I'll do this, or with adults who are struggling. You know, I do work with a lot of junior players when they learn how to serve. I would probably shy away from starting down here. I don't like this starting position as much, because you don't want to get used to keeping your racket, getting your racket stuck down there. That should be a dynamic area the place where you drop the racket. So as you come through, ideally you'd hold here in the power position, somewhere in the power position. You could be in the salute position, sometimes it's called salute, or you could be in the power position here and just accelerate from there. You just do kind of a half motion and then you accelerate. You know, that would be the best half solution, and then you can do the full service action. And you can do it all without the legs. You don't need to use the legs. And then as you progress back, if you notice, I was serving without my legs from the baseline, and then eventually, if I feel pretty good, you can start adding a small hop, and then you can add the full explosion from the legs. That's a nice progression. Guys, I hope these 3 slice tips helped you, and some of the progressions and ideas I helped cut. Guys, I hope these 3 slice tips helped you, and that you can go out there and work on the slice with some of these progressions that I showed you. You can start from the doubles alley, you can start from the service line and kind of work your way back. You don't have to use your legs at first. You can just serve, standing still, try to get that toss oriented in the right place, try to get that grip right, and try to get that whip right, and you'll have a much better slice. You have a much better chance of bending that serve, curving into the body or curving it out wide. The slice is not always easy to learn, but I know you can do it. Try some of those tips. I'll see you next time. If you like this slice serve video, check out this other slice video that I got for you right here.